Hello, you fabulous bunch of people, and welcome back to Season 2 of the Race Rundown. I'm your girl Bex, and straight from the off, I just want to say to you guys, thank you so much for supporting the show so far, listening along. It's been absolutely crazy to see where you're all from, how you've been enjoying the show, all that kind of stuff. And I have a favour to ask. If you could like, follow, subscribe wherever you listen, that would be absolutely fantastic. It tells me that you like what I'm doing, that you support the show. And in return, I will continue to make this show everything that you guys want and more. So on that note, we have an exciting announcement here at Race Rundown HQ. But in order to find out what that announcement is, you're going to have to stick around and find out at the end of the episode. I'm sorry, I had to do it to you. It is well worth the wait, I promise. So, with that being said, let's get into the show. Yo, what is up, guys? It's your girl Bex, and welcome back to the Race Rundown post-Australian Grand Prix. Whoop, 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 whoop. The first race of the season. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back in freaking spectacular style, are we not? For those who haven't had the chance to watch it or don't really know what happened, or just want somebody else's perspective on it, somebody's brutal perspective, as always, I am here to give you the race rundown of what happened. So let's just jump right into it, as always, and then we will do our off-track news / everything you want to hear, thoughts, opinions, etc. So let's get into it. Poor Isaac Hadjar, off in the formation lap. You can't, I laughed, but you can't help but feel for the man, you know. First debut in Formula 1 and you don't even make it to lap 1. Poor kid. Poor kid. Then another one of the rookies, Jack Doohan, off in lap 1. I anticipated that it was going to be crash chaos central before we even knew it was going to be a wet race. Then we knew it was going to be a wet race. And I knew that I had solidified my thoughts and feelings and that was exactly what was going to happen. So then we're thinking, 2 rookies out already. When's the next rookie going to crash? It wasn't a rookie this time. It was lap 7 for Carlos Sainz crashing. Poor Carlos. I mean, if it wasn't already bad enough, sorry Williams fans, if it wasn't already bad enough that he's gone from Ferrari to a Williams. We're going to get into this, my thoughts and feelings on Williams, but just hear me out on this. If it wasn't already bad enough, he then crashes on lap 7. After that, everything was relatively interesting. However, lap 17. Now, imagine me, please, half asleep, as it was 4 a.m. in the United Kingdom at the time of the race. Lap 17, Verstappen has a wiggle on turn 10, I believe. I suddenly woke up. I was already partially awake because Lando was in P1, so I was, watching him and Oscar like an absolute hawk because, quite frankly, I don't trust Oscar. I think he will stab Lando in the back the first second he gets, and there's going to be a massive fight mid-season. I'm calling that now. He had a bit of a wiggle. I awoke as Oscar was then in position 2. So I was already on edge. Then I'm even more on edge. But nothing really happened after that. The McLarens, just pulled away. Lap 29, Verstappen was 16 seconds off the lead. Good, keep him there. In my opinion, good, keep him there. Lap 30, Oscar's been told to hold the position. Now, I understand it was his home race. I understand that McLaren don't want there to be a number 1 driver. They want it to be even between the two of them. However, I don't think that is possible anymore. I think they just need to bite the bullet and get it done. Having 2 number 1 drivers just does not work. And I think it has the potential to come back and bite them in the arse. So they need to be on that shit, basically. Zach needs to basically tell Oscar that Lando's been there longer and that he should be number 1 driver. But also, I think that Lando needs to prove himself worthy of that position. And up until recently, he hasn't been doing that. So I'm not being biased. I'm just saying it how it is, that I genuinely believe if he can prove himself worthy, Lando should be considered number 1 driver in the team. So that's my opinion on Piastri being held in second at that point. Now, I, at this point, as I said, was very stressed. And then my stress mounted even more in lap 34 when Alonso went spinning and smacking himself into the wall for another safety car. Another one. Everybody then starts to pit for slicks. So Merc, Ferrari, Alpine, Lando, everybody starts pitting for slicks. Lando, Oscar go on hards. Red Bull on the mediums. Max on the mediums. Lawson bringing up the rear. Perez Mark II bringing up the rear. As always. Then, lap 42, there was a mention over the radio. Class 3 rain. Now, for those of you that don't understand race talk, I'm still learning a lot of it, so I'm no expert. However, Class 3, quite a lot. Quite a lot of rain. Should be concerned, especially as everybody just went on slicks. So I'm not panicking at this point, but pretty up there. Nerves are pretty up there. And I'm thinking, deja vu. I've seen this before. McLaren F the pit strategy. And they end up P19 because they just don't pit early enough. So I'm freaking out. The mention of rain disappears shortly after that. There's still rumbles from all the other teams. However, it disappears. Lap 44. I damn near had a heart attack. Please picture me sitting there watching the race, trying not to wake up my loving other half, as he is just not interested in Formula One. So I'm trying to watch it, trying not to freak him out. Meanwhile, both the McLarens end up in the gravel. Now, my heart was in my mouth. I was like, I've seen this before. I know how it ends. I am so upset right now. So Lando in the gravel manages to save it, continues. Oscar, on the other hand, fuck knows what was going on there, ended up going out of the gravel, fantastic, and then just sliding into the grass. And I was like, right. So then obviously we had a yellow flag for a few laps for him to try and figure that out. And he somehow, props to the man, managed to get it out of the grass. Like, his race was ruined at that point, but you got it out of the grass. Fair play. Fair play. At his home race, it would have been gutting to see him go out like that. But I can't help but think that he messed that up for himself because he was trying to get ahead of Lando and pushed it too much. Personal opinion. Let me know if you think differently. However, I think that is genuinely what occurred. Yellow flag, no safety car while he was sorting that out. Lap 45. So after that wiggle. After the wiggle and going into the gravel, Lando pits for inters. At this point, again, my heart is in my mouth. I've seen this before. They've pitted for inters. The rain never came. They had to go pit for slicks again. Max, of course, the Red Bull strategy, stays out on the mediums. Now, at this point, I'm freaking out. The group chat's popping off. I'm thinking, I've seen this before. This is all going to go to shit. Max is going to end up winning. I may as well go back to bed. However, that was not the case. For once, touch wood, crossing all my fingers and toes, it appears that McLaren nailed a pit strategy. Again, I don't want to speak too soon, but it appears that they nailed a pit strategy for once and was on the inters at the right time. Max then pits lap 46. There was a radio message and a bit of confusion with the commentary team for him to stay out. However, they changed their mind last minute and brought him in. So at this point, I've come back to normal breathing. I'm like, okay, we might have this. We might. Lando's in the lead at lap 52. George is having a sniff at Max. Gasly loses a place on lap 54. He hits a puddle and loses a place to Leclerc. And just when you think that's already bad enough, you've made a mistake, you've hit a puddle, you've lost a place. Ouch, that hurts. Hamilton then capitalises and goes round him as well. So not only did you lose to one Ferrari, you lost to both. You lost to both. Poor Alpine. Alpine is the new Williams. Just calling it. I called it at the end of last season. I'm calling it again this season as a result of the results. And you will see why momentarily. So, lap 55 and 56. Lando has a blip on turn 6. Again, my heart goes in my mouth. I've seen this before. He does this every time. Lando bottle job Norris. Love him the most, but he has a track record of being in first and fluffing it. So I was scared. I was truly, truly scared. Had a blip in turn 6. Max was then able to get within DRS on the last lap. Technically the last 2 laps, the remainder of 56 and the beginning of 57. I'm freaking out because it's blipping between just under half a second and 0.7 of a second. So I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God. I'm thinking, oh dear, he's going to hit a puddle. He's going to bottle it, whatever. Will then comes over the radio. Calm words. Absolutely fantastic radio message. You know, push it, but don't push it too much. Stay calm. Love that. It reminded me of old school Hamilton and Bono. Hopefully we could see fantastic things from Will and Lando this season. I would love that. So towards the back, towards the midfield, my guy Kimi Antonelli. I just want to take a second here before I obviously tell you what the scores were, if you don't already know. I just want to tell you, okay, that I was very hesitant when it came to our boy, Kimi Antonelli. I wasn't sure that he was going to perform, to be honest. I'm going to be honest. And I thought, genuinely, Mercedes have made a mistake. I would like to formally say now, on the podcast, I was wrong. I was wrong, okay? What we saw in the race was Kimi get past Albon into fourth. However, he then received a penalty for an unsafe release. Now, as of 9 o'clock this morning, Antonelli was promoted back to P4 for the Australian Grand Prix as the penalty was overturned. Woohoo! So, then, obviously, as we all know, Lando wins the race. So, we have Norris in first, Verstappen second, Russell and Antonelli third and fourth, Albon in the Williams, big up Albon, in fifth. Nobody's favourite driver, Lance Stroll, in sixth. We don't talk about that. If Alonso was still in the race, he would have been in sixth anyway. Hülkenberg, Leclerc, Piastri, and bringing up the top 10 positions is Hamilton. If I was Hamilton right now, I would be straight on that phone to Dodo. I stand by my statement that Lewis moving to Ferrari was out of pure desperation and is career suicide. Ferrari are just not there. It appears that Mercedes have been putting in the time and effort for them to be on a podium at the beginning of the year compared to a couple years ago. You know, if I was Lewis, I'd be questioning my decision making right now because I feel like he almost jumped the gun too quickly and was like, oh, well, the car's rubbish, we're losing, so there's no point me sticking around. And I think that was a genuine error on his part. I really do. And I just don't think that Ferrari, with their current layout and their current pit strategy and their current, honestly, race strategy in general, could get any higher than P4 in the constructors this year. Again, it's only race one, so I could be wrong. However, I'm not normally wrong. I'm not normally wrong. So we'll just have to see. We'll have to see. That is the race rundown of the Australian Grand Prix. Absolute chaos. Absolute chaos to start. Now, I want to go to some off-track news. So obviously this year, 2025, there's no bonus points for fastest lap, which is disappointing because Lando would have got the extra points. That upsets me. Other changes that we have for 2025, it has been announced as of either today, so the 16th, or yesterday, the 15th, that there are now 2 compulsory pit stops needed for Monaco this year. We all know how I feel about Monaco. If you haven't listened back to season 1 and heard my thoughts and feelings on Monaco, definitely do that. Long and short of it, I think it's boring. And clearly Formula 1 agree with me. Clearly they agree with me that in order to make that race more interesting, because no fucker can overtake, they need to have pit stops put in. Is that a desperate attempt to make Monaco more interesting? 110%. 110%. Am I going to give it the benefit of the doubt and maybe enjoy it this year? Probably not. I'm going to be honest, probably not. I will watch it, but whether I enjoy it or not, we'll have to see. Hopefully the pit stops will help spice it up a little bit, but I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure at all. And I don't know, Monaco is just boring to me. So there was a little bit of off-track news surrounding this GP just gone, and I just want to touch on Hamilton's dad and Hadjar, right? There's been a lot of speculation in the past that Hamilton's dad wasn't the most loving individual. very similar to that of Max's father. Maybe not to the extent, but, you know, the fathers tend to have the tough love mentality when it comes to their sons and F1. And Hamilton's dad, to me, has always had a very rough exterior. I know he's very loving and everything, but I feel like common knowledge is that Hamilton's relationship with his dad is complicated, to say the least. So today, when I saw Hajar crying, basically, after crashing in the formation lap, and seeing Hamilton's dad coming over to him and supporting him and showing a side to him that I haven't seen in a very long time, it just shows to me that, you know, love or hate him, Hamilton and his family are pivotal to F1. They're pivotal to the sport. They're known worldwide and clearly respected by a lot of people. And I thought it was really touching that his dad did that. His dad could have seen that happen and go, you know, tough luck, whatever. But he didn't. He was really kind, really caring, really considerate, and just basically gave him a hug and told him that everything was going to be all right. And I feel like that's exactly what he needed after that. It must have been rough to crash out in the formation lap on your debut for Formula One. That's rough. He will get another chance, of course. However, you know, that's rough. Your first race of the season, you don't even make it to lap one. So I'm glad that somebody was there for him. I know his parents were there, but sometimes you just need somebody outside of your family to just be like, look, it's fine. And for that to come from the father of a 7-time world champion, I feel like it probably meant all the more to him. Obviously, I'm not him, so I don't know, but I feel like that would have made all the difference, you know? And on a slightly lighter hearted note, we have Charles' water leak. That video is honestly quality. Is there a leak? A leak in what? Water? Oh yeah, that's probably water. No shit, he wouldn't have said it otherwise. So basically, it's already raining, it's already slippy, he's already having to try and pay attention to everything that's fucking going on, and now he's sitting in a swimming pool. Fantastic. No wonder he finished where he did. Poor Charles. But that has got to go down as one of the funniest radio messages I've heard in a very, very long time. The next thing that I want to bring up, which arguably is probably the most important thing that you guys want to hear from me in this episode of the Race Rundown, is my thoughts and feelings on the dreaded Drive to Survive Season 7. Well, we all know I am not the biggest Drive to Survive fan. I don't hate it. I've watched all 7 seasons. And I have an unpopular opinion that a lot of people will probably disagree with. And that is, Season 7 was arguably the best season yet. Is that because it was a bit more informative and a bit less dramatic? Yes. However, there is a caveat to this. I was angry in a number of episodes because you could clearly tell that it was edited to spice it up a little bit. There was parts of races chopped and changed together. I get that. You have to do that in order to make a story. I understand that. What I don't understand / agree with is them filming and listening into George's panic attack. I think that was completely unnecessary. As a fellow mental health sufferer, I felt for him in that scenario because, you know, at that point you're losing all control over your body, you're quite vulnerable, and you've got Netflix sticking a camera in your face. I know they were behind a door, but even then it was still absolutely outrageous in my opinion that they recorded that, and not only recorded it, kept the footage, edited it, and then posted it for the world to see. I know it's probably to show, you know, the vulnerable side of Formula One drivers and stuff like that. I don't think we need to see that vulnerable side. I think if we do see that vulnerable side of all those drivers, it should be on their own terms. Which leads me into another topic of conversation, which is surrounding the privacy of the drivers at this stage. As much as I love, you know, seeing into the lives of the drivers and seeing them on the grid and seeing them, you know, here, there and everywhere, get as much camera time as humanly possible, not only for the sport itself, but for their own personal brands. You know, they're all doing their own thing outside of Formula One. They've all got their own businesses. They've all got their own hobbies that they like. I love that on socials, on their own time. I think there is a lot of focus especially from an F1 perspective, to get as much footage of the drivers as humanly possible. Now, everybody bangs on about how dangerous this sport is. It's no secret that it is a high pressure sport that involves a lot of dangerous scenarios at high speeds. And I'm sorry, but if you've got a bajillion cameras shoved in your face, bearing in mind they've got the Sky F1 cameras, they've got people on the pit with their phones, they've got social media managers behind the scenes for each team, getting them to do a certain amount of videos so that they can keep posting on socials and be relevant. You've got people behind the scenes, meet and greets that they're doing, all wanting photos. It's a lot in a race weekend. And yes, some people would argue that that's what they get for wanting to be an F1 driver and wanting to be famous. But back in the day, they had famous F1 drivers doing magazine covers and things like that, but there wasn't a camera shoved in their face 24/7. And I think that's the problem. One of the biggest things that I don't understand is the need for the cool down room. I feel like they've been on camera enough as it is. And in races like Singapore, where they're literally sweating buckets, losing loads of weight, coming out feeling ill, physically sick, putting their bodies through endless amounts of G-force for hours in scorching hot heat, the last thing they need is to be sitting in a cool down room, chugging down water so that they don't pass out, and have a camera in their face. I don't want to see that. I want them to have 5-10 minutes in a room to decompress, to talk about the race, and then come out on the podium. I want to see the podium. I don't care about the cool down room. I get that it's another way to get like the insider scoop on the drivers and stuff, but where is the line? When does it become too much of a distraction? And I think the episode from Drive to Survive following Lando around and the rest of that crew of everyone that go-karted together, I think that kind of gave an insight into the vulnerability of these drivers and the nerves that they have, and the fact that they have to try and concentrate in order to deliver at the highest level in a high pressure situation, and they've got cameras shoved in their face. I feel sorry for them, I really do. I really do, because as much as I love this sport and as much as I love all the individual drivers and everything like that, and as much as the social videos crack me up, they really do, they crack me up, there is a lot of pressure for them to be on 24/7 that it almost takes away from them driving. I get it from a business perspective, and obviously you've got to keep the sponsors happy and you've got to keep the team happy and you've got to keep the socials ticking over. I get that, but I think there needs to be a line put and there needs to be rules around it. I think that as stubborn as he is, Max has clearly put boundaries in, as he wasn't featured a lot in Netflix season 7, and I think that was out of choice. Clearly it's down to the individual driver whether they want to be a part of Netflix as a whole, but when it comes to race weekend and all the post-race interviews and the pre-race interviews, and it starts on like a Wednesday and it ends on a Monday, like that's crazy. But that's a long time to be on camera when you've got a job to do. When you're trying to block out all the noise and you're trying to just get on with what you need to get on with, that's a lot of noise. And I think there needs to be a line. And also the FIA bringing in rules around swearing on team radios. Let it happen. They're in a high pressure situation. They're driving at 300 miles an hour. I drop F-bombs on a daily. So for them to be driving at 300 miles an hour and getting pissed off with someone in their ear, I'm not surprised. Let them swear. So what? Kids are watching. If their parents are letting them watch, that's on them. Sorry, but it is. That's on them. Another unpopular opinion, shock. That's on them. If you don't want them to hear the swearing, bleep it out on the broadcast. If that's what you really want to do. We can't have censorship all the time. Like, there needs to be a line, okay? There needs to be a line. Anyway, and the final point that I want to bring up, which is the bit that you guys have been waiting for, is my plans for the podcast moving forwards. I want to let you guys know that we now have a Race Rundown Facebook group. Yay! Finally, we have a group on Facebook where you can join the community, share memes, talk about races. I want to hear your thoughts and opinions on everything, okay? So we've now got a Facebook group, we've got an Instagram. I'm working on a TikTok. I'm not the biggest fan of TikTok. I'm working on it. And I just really want to build this community this year. So, as I said at the top of this episode, if you could like, if you could follow, if you could subscribe, if you could even leave a review, a 5-star review wherever you are listening, just to let me know that you like the show, you love what we're doing, because I see you guys listening on the back end. It really means a lot to me. And as you know, the next race is this weekend, 22nd and 23rd in China. Now, if you are watching from the UK and you are unsure of what time the race is on, it is on at 7 a.m. That's a lot easier to watch than the 4 a.m. in Australia. So I'm very thankful for that. 7 a.m. on the 23rd of March. The 5-year anniversary of lockdown. God, let's not even get into that. 2020. Whew, Jesus. There is a sprint race, the first sprint race of the season, 2 races in. As you all know, I'm not the biggest fan of the sprint races, but that will take place on the 21st of March, so the Friday. 7:30 till 8:14 is the qualifying. 3 p.m. till 4 p.m. is the actual sprint race itself. Qualifying is on between 7 and 8 on the 22nd, and the race is on at 7 a.m. on the 23rd. So, until then, I've been your girl Bex. This has been the Race Rundown, and I'll see you lot in the next one. Peace.